The crystal flute shattered against the marble floor, cutting through the symphonic laughter of the elite. Ronan Blackwell stood at the top of the grand staircase, his tuxedo catching the light, a cruel grin fixed on the soaked figure standing by the doors. Elliot Graveson shivered, not from the rain drenching his courier uniform, but from the burning weight of the eyes upon him. He clutched the wet envelope against his chest, a barrier between his poverty and their excess. Marina Kessel watched from the shadows, her heart hammering against her ribs, knowing that the man being mocked held more than just a delivery, held the fuse to their destruction. In a room filled with fake smiles and stolen fortunes, the only real thing was the vengeance silently ticking inside the courier's pocket. Do not look away, because the fall is always highest from the top. The heavy oak doors creaked open against the storm outside. Elliot stepped onto the pristine white marble of the hall. Rainwater dripped from the hem of his faded blue jacket. A dark puddle formed instantly around his worn-out boots. The string quartet faltered for a second before continuing. Heads turned, adorned in diamonds and silk, judging him. He was a stain on their perfect, expensive evening canvas. Ronan Blackwell descended the stairs like a king on display. He held a glass of vintage champagne loosely in one hand. His voice boomed across the cavernous room, silencing the music. "Look what the storm dragged in," he announced to the crowd. "Did we order a drowned rat with the hors d'oeuvres?" The room erupted in polite, jagged laughter at Elliot's expense. Elliot gripped the package tighter, his knuckles turning white. He kept his head down, playing the role they expected. The invisible worker, the servant, the nobody with no name. But his eyes, hidden beneath the brim of his cap, were sharp. He memorized the faces of the board members laughing the loudest. He noted the jewelry bought with funds stolen from pension plans. He saw the decay hidden beneath layers of expensive foundation. Patience was a weapon he had sharpened for 10 long years. A waiter approached, holding a silver tray out as a barrier. "Service entrance is around the back, boy," the waiter sneered. "Mr. Blackwell requested this be delivered in person," Elliot said. His voice was soft, rough from the cold, but steady. Ronan laughed again, gesturing for the crowd to watch the show. "Let him approach. I want to smell the desperation up close." The cruelty was the point, the humiliation was the evening's entertainment. Elliot walked forward, the squelch of his boots echoing loudly. He felt the heat of 100 gazes burning his skin. Every step was a mile, every second an hour of shame. He remembered his father, broken by men like Ronan Blackwell. He remembered the cold nights and the hunger they ignored. Tonight, they laughed at a courier, a simple messenger boy. They didn't know he was the message they had feared. Marina Kessel stood near a pillar, her glass untouched. She didn't laugh, she felt a sick knot in her stomach. She saw the dignity in Elliot's posture despite the rain. She saw the cruelty in Ronan's eyes, the man she worked for. It was a moment that divided the room into wolves and sheep. She wanted to look away, but something made her stay. Sometimes, doing nothing is the guiltiest verdict of all. Elliot reached the bottom of the stairs, looking up at Ronan. The height difference was symbolic, a mountain versus a molehill. Ronan toasted him mockingly, spilling champagne on the floor. "Put it down and get out, before you stain the rug." Elliot placed the envelope on a side table with care. He turned to leave, the laughter rising like a tide behind him. But the envelope remained, a landmine waiting for a footstep. 3 days earlier, the office was a tomb of silence. Marina sat alone, the blue light of the monitor glowing. She was a compliance analyst, paid to check the boxes. But the numbers on the Blackwell account refused to align. A recurring transfer to a shell company in the Caymans. Small amounts at first, then growing bold and reckless. It was theft, dressed up in the language of logistics. She rubbed her tired eyes, wishing she could unsee it. The name attached to the shell company was a ghost. Ethelgard Holdings, an entity with no website, no office. It owned nothing, yet it received millions every quarter. And the beneficiary's signature was always an illegible scrawl. She tried to trace the IP address of the transfers. It led to a public library in the poorest district. Why would a millionaire launder money through a slum library? The anomaly nagged at her sense of order and justice. She pulled the physical archives, dust coating her manicured hands. Buried in a file from the 90s, she found a letter. It was a handwritten plea from a partner pushed out. "You are stealing my son's future," the letter read. The name at the bottom was Graveson, same as the Courier. She had seen Elliot before, delivering mail to the lobby. He was quiet, efficient, always keeping his eyes on the floor. Could there be a connection between the billions and the boy? It seemed impossible, a fairy tale twisted into a corporate crime. But the data didn't lie, only the people who entered it. She printed the spreadsheet, her heart racing with dangerous curiosity. If Ronan knew she was looking, her career was over. She heard the elevator ding, signaling the security rounds. Panic flared in her chest as she minimized the windows. She shoved the printed pages into her purse, trembling slightly. The flashlight beam swept across the glass walls of her office. "Working late again, Ms. Kessel?" The guard asked suspiciously. "Just finishing a report," she lied, her voice too high. "Mr. Blackwell likes loyalty, but he hates overtime," he warned. She waited until the guard left, then packed her bag. The weight of the paper felt like a brick in her purse. She walked out into the cool night air, feeling watched. The city skyline glittered, a monument to money and power. She realized that the gleaming towers were built on bones. And she was holding the map to the graveyard. You never know when your job will become a moral test. On her way to the subway, she saw him. Elliot. He was reading a thick book on contract law under a streetlight. He looked nothing like a courier in that private moment. He looked like a scholar, a man studying for a war. She almost approached him, but fear held her back. She needed to be sure before she crossed that line. Because once you open the file, you can never close it. The morning after the gala, the atmosphere was brittle. Ronan stormed through the office, barking orders at secretaries. He was hungover, angry, and looking for a punching bag. Elliot arrived with the morning mail, his uniform dry now. He moved silently, placing letters in the designated trays. Ronan stopped him in the middle of the open-plan floor. "You," Ronan snapped, snapping his fingers like calling a dog. The entire office froze, typing stopping, phones lowered instantly. "Yes, Mr. Blackwell?" Elliot asked, his face a calm mask. "There was mud on the carpet this morning." "From you?" "I wiped my feet, sir. It was raining very hard." "Do not talk back to me. You ruin everything you touch." Ronan grabbed a stack of documents from Elliot's hands. He threw them into the air, scattering them everywhere. "Pick them up," Ronan commanded, towering over him. "And make sure they are in alphabetical order this time." It was a task for a child, a punishment for existing. Elliot knelt slowly, his knees hitting the thin carpet. He began to gather the papers, his movements deliberate. Marina watched from her desk, her knuckles white on her pen. This was not management, this was public psychological torture. "Look at him," Ronan sneered to the watching executives. "This is what happens when you lack ambition and pedigree. He is a lesson to all of you. Work harder." Elliot did not flush, did not cry, did not shake. He picked up a letter addressed to the board of directors. He knew the contents of that letter better than Ronan. It was a notice of an impending hostile takeover audit. Ronan kicked a piece of paper away from Elliot's reach. "Faster. I don't pay you to crawl on the floor." "Actually, the courier service pays me, sir," Elliot said quietly. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. Ronan's face turned a violent shade of crimson red. "Get out of my sight before I have you banned." Elliot stood up, holding the stack perfectly aligned. "The mail is delivered," Mr. Blackwell. Have a good day. Elliot turned and walked to the elevators, head held high. He had won the interaction by refusing to break. But Ronan was not a man who let defiance slide. He turned to his head of security, whispering a command. Find out where the rat lives. And squeeze him. Power hates nothing more than a victim who isn't afraid. Marina felt a surge of nausea and a surge of courage. She saw the dignity in Elliot's silence, the strength there. She realized that Elliot wasn't just surviving, he was waiting. The injustice of the moment burned through her fear. She knew she had to speak to him, warn him. Because men like Ronan didn't stop at humiliation. They stopped only when they were destroyed or dead. The service corridor was a gray, concrete vein in the building. It was where the real work happened, unseen by the rich. Elliot leaned against the wall, taking a deep, shaking breath. The mask of calm had slipped, revealing raw exhaustion. He checked his phone. The bank transfer was still pending. He needed 2 more days before the trap could snap. Are you okay? A soft voice asked from the shadows. He looked up to see Marina, holding a cup of coffee. She looked out of place against the industrial pipes. I'm fine, Miss Kessel. Just doing my job, he replied. He had no right to treat you like that, she said. He thinks he has every right. That's his weakness. Elliot's eyes met hers, intelligent and surprisingly blue. She offered him the coffee, a peace offering of caffeine. I saw you reading law books the other night, she whispered. Elliot froze, his hand halfway to the paper cup. I like to read. It's a free hobby, he deflected. You were reading about corporate mergers and acquisition strategy. Maybe I'm ambitious. Or maybe I just like big words. You're not who you pretend to be, Elliot, she challenged. And you're not as happy as you pretend, Marina. The exchange was a dance on the edge of a razor. They were 2 people wearing masks, recognizing each other. Be careful, she said, her voice dropping to a hush. Ronan is looking for a reason to fire the Courier company. Let him try. Contracts are harder to break than people. Why do you stay? You could do better than this. I'm exactly where I need to be. For now. He took a sip of the coffee, closing his eyes briefly. Thank you. Kindness is a rare currency in this tower. It shouldn't be, she said, stepping a little closer. If you ever need someone to talk to, she trailed off. I can't drag you into my mess, Marina. It's dangerous. I'm already in it. I found the Ethelgard file. The air between them suddenly became electric with danger. Elliot lowered the cup, his expression turning deadly serious. Forget you saw that name. Wipe it from your mind. It's too late. I know they are stealing. From who? From everyone. Please, Marina. Stay away from the ledger. I can help you. Whatever you are planning. The only help I need is for you to be safe. He walked away, leaving her alone in the gray light. Marina returned to her desk, her mind racing with questions. She pulled up the digital scan of the old contract again. She zoomed in on the signature of the original founder. Arthur Graves' son. The name was undeniable, etched in ink. She did a quick search on the public obituary records. Arthur died penniless 10 years ago, leaving 1 son. Elliot was not just a courier, he was the rightful heir. The realization made her hands tremble on the keyboard. Blackwell had pushed the father out, stole the patent, the company. And now he was humiliating the son, unaware of the threat. She looked at the signature on the recent Ethelgard documents. It was a forgery, a clumsy attempt to mimic the dead. Ronan was signing checks using a dead man's authority. This was fraud on a massive, federal prison level. She needed to get the physical proof out of the building. But the archives were monitored by cameras and keycards. She needed a reason to be in the basement storage. She forged a request form, using an old project code. Her heart pounded as she took the elevator down. The basement smelled of old paper and stagnant air. Rows of metal shelves stretched out like a maze. She found the box marked 1995 Incorporation documents. Her fingers dusted off the lid, opening it with care. The folder was there, but it felt too light, too thin. She opened it. The original partnership agreement was gone. Someone had sanitized the history of the company. Panic set in. If the proof was gone, Elliot had nothing. Unless Elliot had the original copy himself. She heard footsteps echoing on the concrete floor nearby. She froze, crouching behind a stack of tax records. Check the perimeter. Mr. Blackwell is paranoid today. It was the security chief, speaking into his radio. Marina held her breath, praying the dust wouldn't make her sneeze. They were sweeping the archives. They knew someone was digging. She had to get out before she was found and fired. She waited until the footsteps faded, then bolted for the stairs. She couldn't use the elevator, the logs would track her. She climbed 20 flights of stairs, lungs burning, legs shaking. Back at her desk, she looked composed but felt shattered. She wrote a note on a sticky pad: the file is empty. She walked by the mail cart and stuck it underneath. It was a tiny act of espionage in a glass war zone. Elliot found the note 10 minutes later, while sorting mail. He read it, crumbled it, and swallowed the paper whole. He looked across the room and gave a microscopic nod. He knew the file was empty. He had the original. But he needed Marina to stop digging before she got hurt. The game was entering the endgame, and casualties were likely. The building was a fortress of glass and hidden lenses. Every corner, every hallway, every exit was recorded. Ronan Blackwell watched the monitors from his penthouse office. He saw the Courier and the analyst talking in the hall. Zoom in, he commanded the technician at the console. The grainy image showed the exchange of the coffee cup. Fraternizing with the help. Disgusting, Ronan muttered. He didn't care about affection, he cared about alliances. Marina was smart, too smart for her own good. And the Courier was too calm, too observant. Pull her internet history. Keystrokes, search terms, everything. And put a tail on the boy when he leaves work. Ronan swirled his scotch, feeling the paranoia tightening. An empire built on theft is always one truth away from collapse. Downstairs, Elliot felt the weight of the surveillance. He knew the blind spots: the stairwell, the loading dock. He moved through the building like a ghost in the machine. He avoided eye contact, kept his head down, worked fast. But he was mapping the security shifts, the guard rotations. He was planning for the night of the board gala. That was when the final strike would land. Marina felt the digital noose tightening around her neck. Her computer was slower, lagging as if mirroring data. She started using her personal phone on data, not Wi-Fi. She texted Elliot, eyes are open. Watch your back. The message failed to send. Signal jammer in the lobby. They were isolating them, cutting off their communication. She realized she was no longer an employee, she was a suspect. Elliot went to the loading dock to meet his driver. A black sedan was parked across the street, engine idling. He saw the glint of binoculars from the passenger seat. They were following him. Good. Let them chase a decoy. He handed his courier bag to a friend, swapping jackets. Take the long way home, run them around the city. You sure, boss? The friend asked, looking worried. I need 2 hours of invisibility. Go. The friend drove off, the black sedan peeling out after him. Elliot slipped out the side door, into the alleyway. He was free, but the clock was ticking down fast. He had a meeting with the only lawyer Ronan couldn't bribe. Tonight, the legal assault would begin in the shadows. If you are watching, make sure you see the truth. Elliot sat in the dimly lit diner, waiting. The old lawyer, Mr. Henderson, slid into the booth opposite. "You look like your father," Henderson said, voice raspy. "I hope I have better luck than he did," Elliot replied. He placed the original partnership agreement on the table. The paper was yellowed, brittle, but the ink was clear. "This proves 51 ownership. It's the smoking gun. It's a declaration of war, son," Henderson warned him. "Blackwell has judges, police, and senators in his pocket. He doesn't have the shareholders. They only care about profit. If you reveal this, he will try to kill you. He already killed my father by destroying his life. Revenge is a bitter drink, Elliot. It poisons the vessel. This isn't revenge. It's a correction of the ledger." Meanwhile, Marina was summoned to Ronan's office. The room was vast, cold, with a view of the city. Ronan sat behind his desk, not bothering to stand up. "Ms. Kessel. We have noticed some irregularities in the accounts, sir. I was just about to report in your behavior. Accessing archives. Talking to couriers." His voice was smooth, like velvet wrapped around a knife. "I am thorough. That is why you hired me," she said. "I hired you to be efficient, not inquisitive." He slid a piece of paper across the polished mahogany. It was a non-disclosure agreement, stricter than before. "Sign this. It reaffirms your loyalty and silence." "And if I don't?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Then your career ends. And legal action begins." She looked at the pen, then at Ronan's predatory eyes. She realized that signing was an admission of guilt. But refusing was an act of open rebellion. She picked up the pen, her hand hovering over the line. She signed. Not because she surrendered, but to buy time. "Good girl. Now get back to work. And stay offline." She walked out, feeling dirty, feeling the ink burn. She met Elliot by the subway entrance later that night. "I signed an NDA. He knows I know," she whispered. "He's scared. He's trying to plug the leaks." "Elliot, what are you going to do?" "He's powerful. Power is an illusion. It relies on people believing it. I'm scared for you. I'm scared for us. Trust me. Just for 3 more days. Trust me." The Ethelgard account was not just a slush fund. Elliot had decrypted the metadata from the leaked files. It was a list of bribes disguised as consulting fees. City inspectors, union leaders, even a federal judge. The corruption went deeper than just stealing the company. Blackwell was rotting the city from the inside out. Elliot realized he wasn't just saving a legacy. He was sitting in his small apartment, walls covered in maps. Photos of the corrupt officials were pinned with red string. It looked like a conspiracy theory, but it was a map of truth. He needed to expose them all, not just Ronan. But if he released the list, the company would collapse. The stock would tank, thousands would lose their jobs. He had to cut out the cancer without killing the patient. Marina was doing her own investigation from home. She used an encrypted browser on a burner laptop. She cross-referenced the dates of the transfers with news events. Every payment coincided with a favorable ruling or permit. The pattern was undeniable. It was systemic bribery. She felt a chill. They were up against a mafia in suits. She wanted to run, but her conscience anchored her feet. She received a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging or the accident will look real." Her phone fell from her hand, clattering on the floor. They had her personal number. They were watching her home. Fear turned into anger. They were threatening her life. She grabbed her coat and ran to Elliot's apartment. She knew the address from the HR file she stole. She banged on his door, breathless and terrified. Elliot opened it, shirtless, scars visible on his torso. "They threatened me," she gasped, pushing past him. He locked the door and pulled the shades down instantly. "I told you to stay away," he said, voice full of pain. "I can't. I'm in this. We are in this together." He looked at her, and the distance between them vanished. "Look at the wall," he pointed to the web of strings. "This is what we are fighting. It's not just one man. It's a monster," she whispered, tracing the lines. "And on Friday, at the gala, we cut off its head." "How? How can a courier take down a kingdom?" "By showing them that the king has no clothes. And no money," Elliot added with a dark smile. The tiny apartment felt like a bunker against the world. Rain lashed against the single window, echoing their mood. Marina sat on the worn sofa, wrapped in a blanket. Elliot made tea, the domestic act contrasting with the danger. "I'm sorry I dragged you into this," he said softly. "You didn't drag me. I walked in. I hate bullies." She looked at him, really seeing him for the first time. He wasn't just a victim, he was a warrior in waiting. The scars on his arms told stories of hard labor. "Why didn't you sell the claim? Take a payout?" she asked. "Because my father built that company to help people. Ronan turned it into a machine for greed." "Exactly. It's not about the money. It's about the name." He sat beside her, the cushion sagging under his weight. The tension in the room shifted from fear to something else. In the eye of the storm, there was a quiet intimacy. "You're brave, Marina. Braver than anyone in that tower." "I'm terrified. My hands haven't stopped shaking." He reached out and covered her hand with his. His skin was rough, warm, grounding. "I won't let anything happen to you. I promise." She looked into his blue eyes and saw the truth there. "I believe you," she whispered, leaning in slightly. It was a forbidden moment, a breach of every corporate rule. Analyst and courier. Rich and poor. Target and protector. He hesitated, knowing he had nothing to offer but a fight. But she closed the gap, pressing her lips to his. It was soft, desperate, a seal on their silent pact. They pulled away, breathless, the stakes suddenly higher. Now they were fighting for a future, not just the past. "We have work to do," Elliot said, voice husky. "The gala is in 2 days. We need to be ready." She nodded, pulling her professional mask back on. "I can get the guest list. I can smuggle you in. No need. I'm invited. I'm the entertainment, remember? He wants you there to mock you again," she realized. "Exactly. And while he laughs, he'll lock the doors." "It's a trap," she said. "For him or for you? For both of us. Only one walks out with the company. Love is the most dangerous variable in any equation. It makes you reckless. It makes you invincible." The invitation was gold embossed on heavy cream paper. The Blackwell Annual Shareholders Gala. It arrived at the Courier Dispatch Center, a cruel joke. Ronan had sent it to the courier boy personally. The other drivers laughed, thinking it was a prank. Elliot took it with a stoic face, tucking it away. It was his ticket to the execution, Ronan's execution. Marina was in the office when Ronan bragged about it. "I invited the rat. Let him see how the gods eat." The board members chuckled, sipping their espresso. Imagine him in a rented suit, trying to use a fork. Marina bit her tongue until she tasted copper blood. Their arrogance was blinding them to the cliff edge. She focused on her screen, finalizing the presentation hack. Elliot spent his savings on a suit. Not a rental. He went to an old tailor his father used to know. The tailor measured him in silence, recognizing the frame. "You have Arthur's shoulders," the old man said quietly. "I need to look like I own the room," Elliot said. You will look like you own the block, Mr. Graveson. When he put on the navy wool, the transformation was complete. He wasn't a courier anymore. He was the CEO in exile. He practiced his speech in the mirror of his bathroom. Every word had to be a nail in the coffin. He reviewed the evidence files one last time. The bank transfers. The forged signatures. The bribes. He loaded them onto a secure server, timed for release. The trigger was his voice. The weapon was the truth. Friday arrived with a gray sky and heavy winds. The city felt restless, as if sensing the coming storm. Marina wore a red dress, the color of warning. She hid a USB drive in her clutch, a backup plan. She met Ronan in the lobby, forcing a smile. "Ready for the big night, sir?" She asked smoothly. "Tonight, we celebrate record profits," he gloated. "And the future," she added, with a double meaning. "The future is whatever I say it is," Ronan declared. He got into his limousine, leaving her to take a cab. She texted Elliot, "The wolf is on the move." Elliot replied, "The trap is set. See you inside." The stage was set. The players were in position. Tonight, the hierarchy would be inverted forever. The ballroom was a sea of velvet, jewels, and greed. Waiters moved like ghosts, refilling glasses endlessly. Ronan stood on the stage, basking in the applause. "This year, we crushed the competition," he shouted. Cheers erupted. Stocks were up. Morals were down. Elliot entered the back of the room, unnoticed at first. He stood in the shadows, watching the display of hubris. Marina saw him. He looked devastatingly powerful. The suit fit him like armor. His posture was regal. People started to whisper. "Who is that? Is he new?" They didn't recognize the courier in the gentleman. Ronan spotted him and faltered for a microsecond. Then he smiled, a shark smelling blood in the water. "Ladies and gentlemen, our special guest has arrived. The man who delivers our mail. Give him a hand." Scattered, confused applause rippled through the room. Ronan beckoned him. "Come up, boy. Don't be shy. Tell us, how does it feel to be in a room of winners?" Elliot walked toward the stage. He didn't look down. He walked with a predator's grace, slow and steady. The crowd fell silent, sensing a shift in the air. Ronan's smile twitched. This wasn't the reaction he wanted. Elliot climbed the stairs and took the microphone. He didn't hand it back. He held it firmly. "It feels familiar, Ronan," Elliot said, voice booming. "Because this room was built by my father." A gasp went through the audience. The name Graveson. Ronan laughed nervously. "Security. Remove this clown. If security touches me, the files go live," Elliot said. "What files?" Ronan hissed, sweat breaking on his brow. "The files that show you stole this company. And the money." Phones started buzzing in pockets all over the room. The email blast hit every shareholder simultaneously. The ledger of names. Subject line: theft. Ronan looked at his phone, his face turning pale gray. "This is a lie. A fabrication." Ronan screamed. "The bank records are in your inbox," Elliot continued. "The forgery analysis. The bribe list. It's all there." The murmurs turned into shouts. Panic began to spread. Board members looked at Ronan with dawning horror. Their money was gone. Their reputation was next. The confident facade cracked, revealing the panic underneath. "Cut the mic." Ronan shrieked at the sound technician. But the technician was looking at his phone, eyes wide. He didn't cut the sound. He turned it up. "You are finished, Blackwell," a board member shouted. "Where is our money?" Another voice cried out. The gala turned into a tribunal in seconds. Elliot stood calm in the center of the chaos. "I have a motion," Elliot said, his voice cutting through. "I motion for the immediate removal of the CEO." "You have no standing." Ronan spat, lunging at him. Elliot sidestepped, and Ronan stumbled, falling hard. It was pathetic. The Emperor had fallen on his face. "I have standing," Elliot said, pulling a paper out. "I own 51 of the voting stock. As of this morning." Marina stepped forward from the crowd. "I verified the documents. They are legitimate." "You." Ronan looked at her with betrayal. "You rat." "I'm not a rat. I'm a compliance officer." "You failed." The crowd parted as the police entered the main doors. They weren't there for Elliot. They were there for Ronan. The flashing lights reflected off the chandeliers. "Ronan Blackwell, you are under arrest for fraud." The handcuffs clicked sound louder than the music. Ronan struggled, shouting threats, shouting names. But the people he named were deleting his number. Power is lonely when the check bounces. Elliot watched him get dragged away, feeling nothing. The monster was just a man, small and scared. The room turned to Elliot, waiting for a cue. He looked at the faces of the people who mocked him. They looked terrified. They expected him to fire them. They expected the same cruelty they had dished out. "The party is over," Elliot said simply. "Go home. Tomorrow, we start cleaning this mess." He placed the microphone on the podium and walked off. Marina met him at the bottom of the stairs. She didn't say anything. She just took his hand. They walked out together, past the stunned elite. The rain had stopped. The air was clean and cold. They had won. But the war for the company was just starting. Justice is a sentence, but rebuilding is a lifetime job. The next morning, the headlines were explosive. Courier heir reclaims billion-dollar empire. Elliot sat in the CEO's office, which smelled of Ronan. He opened the windows to let the fresh air in. The desk was covered in legal briefs and resignations. He picked up the old fountain pen his father left him. The ink in it was dry, but the symbol remained. Marina walked in, carrying 2 coffees and a file. "The stock dropped 40, but it's stabilizing," she said. "Let it drop." "Well, buy it back cheap," Elliot replied. "You sound like a shark already," she teased gently. "I'm a gardener. I'm pruning the dead branches." He looked at the signature on the acquisition papers. He signed Elliot Graveson for the first time as owner. The ink flowed dark and permanent on the page. It was a reclaiming of identity, a restoration of self. "What about the employees?" Marina asked, worried. "No layoffs for the workers. Only the executives. The board will fight you on that. It costs money. It costs loyalty if we don't. Loyalty is an asset." He was rewriting the rules of the game in real time. He found a hidden safe behind a painting of Ronan. The combination was Ronan's birthday. Predictable narcissist. Inside was a journal. Ronan's personal diary of crimes. It wasn't just numbers, it was gloating descriptions. "The courier boy has no idea," one entry read. Elliot read it, feeling a cold chill of history. He threw the journal into the shredder. "Gone. We need to rebrand," Elliot said, turning to Marina. "No more Blackwell. We go back to the original name. Graveson Dynamics." She suggested. "No. Foundry. Because we are building, not inheriting." It was a fresh start. A new coat of paint on a rusted hull. But the foundation was strong. It was built on truth. Marina looked at him with admiration and love. He wasn't the boy in the rain anymore. But he wasn't Ronan either. He was something new. "Are you ready for the board meeting?" she asked. As ready as he'll ever be. Stay by my side. Always, she said. And she meant it. The boardroom smelled of fear and expensive cologne. 12 men and women sat around the long table. They had mocked him 3 days ago. Now they stood up. Elliot walked in, not with arrogance, but with purpose. He didn't sit at the head of the table. He stood. Sit down, he said quietly. They sat instantly. Things are going to be different, he began. First, the executive dining room is closed. Second, the company cars are being sold. Third, your bonuses are frozen until we are profitable. A murmur of protest rose, then died under his gaze. If you don't like it, the door is open. Resign. 2 members stood up and walked out. Good riddance. The rest stayed, driven by greed or fear or curiosity. We are going to focus on the product, not the stock. We are going to pay the couriers a living wage. And we are going to apologize to the public. Apologize? It shows weakness. One member argued. It shows integrity. Something this room lacks. Elliot threw the file of customer complaints on the table. Read them. These are the people who pay your salary. The meeting lasted 4 hours. It was a bloodbath. But by the end, the air in the room had changed. It wasn't heavy with secrets anymore. It was clear. Elliot walked out, exhausted but feeling lighter. He had taken the wheel of the Titanic and turned it. The iceberg was still there, but they might miss it. Marina was waiting for him with a sandwich. You forgot to eat, she scolded him gently. I was too busy eating the rich, he joked weakly. They sat on the floor of the hallway, eating together. It was the same hallway he used to deliver mail to. Now he owned it. But the sandwich tasted the same. Power changes the view, but hunger is universal. A month later, the scandal had faded from the news. Ronan was awaiting trial, denied bail due to flight risk. The company stock was slowly climbing back up. Elliot sat in his office, looking at the city lights. It was quiet. The adrenaline of the fight was gone. Now came the hard part, the daily grind of leadership. He felt a strange emptiness. The goal was achieved. He missed the anonymity of being a courier sometimes. He missed the simplicity of a package delivered. Now, every decision carried the weight of thousands. Marina knocked and entered, breaking his solitude. You look like you need a vacation, she said. I can't leave. The quarterly review is next week. You're doing it again. Becoming the job. She walked over and turned his chair to face her. We won, Elliot. You don't have to keep fighting. I feel like if I stop, it will all disappear. It won't. You built this. It's real. She placed a hand on his cheek. Come home. Home. He realized he didn't have to go to the apartment. Home was wherever she was. Okay. Let's go, he said, standing up. He turned off the lights in the office. They walked to the elevator, hand in hand. The security guard nodded respectfully. Good night, Mr. Graveson. Good night, John, Elliot replied, knowing his name. That was the difference. He saw the people. Outside, the air was crisp. No rain tonight. They walked down the street, 2 figures in the city. They weren't rich or poor, boss or employee. They were just Elliot and Marina. Survivors. The silence after the applause is where life happens. And for the first time in years, Elliot was living. The courier had delivered his final message, hope. Years later, the story became a corporate legend. The Courier CEO who saved a dying giant. But legends leave out the late nights and the doubts. Elliot and Marina married in a small ceremony. No press, no gala, just friends and the old lawyer. They ran the company with a conscience, a rare thing. They started a scholarship fund for service workers. Ronan Blackwell died in prison, a forgotten man. His legacy was a cautionary tale in business schools. Elliot never forgot the feeling of the rain on his back. He kept his old Courier bag framed in his office. It was a reminder of where he came from. Truth demands vigilance. You can never get comfortable. Corruption is a weed that grows in the shade of success. One day, a young courier dropped a package at his desk. The boy looked nervous, shoes wet from the rain. Elliot stood up and walked around the massive desk. "What's your name, son?" Elliot asked kindly. "David, sir," the boy stammered. "Nice to meet you, David. Hey, race a towel." Elliot handed him a towel from his gym bag. "And David?" "Read the books in the library." "Sir." The boy looked confused. "Knowledge is the only way out of the rain." The boy smiled, a spark of ambition in his eyes. Elliot watched him leave, seeing his younger self. The cycle of abuse was broken. The ladder was down. That was the true victory. Not the money. The change. The world will always have castles and kings. But every castle has a back door. And sometimes, the person with the key is the one you ignore. Watch the quiet ones. They hear everything. And when they speak, empires fall. The chandeliers still shine, but the light is different now. It doesn't hide the dust, it illuminates the path for those climbing up. Elliot and Marina didn't just win a company, they reclaimed their dignity from a world designed to strip it away. Justice wasn't a gavel banging in a court, it was the quiet act of treating a worker like a human being. Their love survived the fire because it was forged in truth, not convenience. If you ever feel invisible, remember Elliot in the rain. Your time is coming. The file is open, and the truth is on your side. Join our community of truth seekers. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a reckoning. If this story made you believe in justice, hit the like button and share it with someone who needs hope. Comment "I am watching" if you are ready for the next chapter. The next story exposes a secret hidden in a hospital ward. You won't believe what they found.